Recording has been started.
Good morning, our viewers in the United States, and good day to our audience everywhere, and good evening to our distinguished speaker. We are here on behalf of the Council for Strategic Affairs for yet another distinguished series as part of CSA's educational programs. So those of you who joined us probably saw this flyer when you registered. Today's topic is Russia's Ukraine war, strategic victory or stalemate. And our distinguished speaker is Major General Shashi Bhushan Asthana. We are meeting today on Saturday, July 23rd, 10 a.m. in the United States and 7:30 p.m. India time, where our speaker is based. And you're going to see our speaker very soon. This is Major General retired Shashi Bhushan Asthana. A little bit about CSA's introduction. Council for Strategic Affairs imparts education in the field of international relations. CSA fosters discussion, dialogue, and debate on geopolitical issues. CSA encourages strategic studies in general to raise the level of awareness. CSA condemns terrorism in all forms worldwide, and CSA aims to contribute towards world peace and prosperity. We have a monthly roundtable discussion on second Saturday of each month. We have a monthly guest lecture by a domain expert that is on fourth Saturday of each month. CSA also organizes symposia, meetings, and conferences. And CSA promotes publications of articles on issues of strategic affairs. So I'm not sure if I can see my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
So this is another picture of our esteemed speaker. I'll give you a
It's
little
not
bit of.
I can only see the logo.
Okay. I think we'll do without the.
The logo is the only thing visible on the screen currently.
Okay. Now.
Still the logo.
Okay. Can you see now?
Yeah, just the logo.
Still the logo.
Still the logo.
आप ट्राई करिए अगर कर सकते हैं आप.
Namaste everyone, Ankush here.
Ramanan, अगर आप ट्राई कर.
Yeah.
Ankush, namaste.
And if we do without then the PowerPoint, I'll just give introduction to.
Yeah, I think we can leave the PowerPoint part of this.
Get to the discussion.
So, General Asthana is chief. He is Confederation of Educational Excellence. He is also on the Security Council of Educational Development, National Police Commission of India. He is also associated with Educational Development in Africa. He is on advisory of the Business Center, and I United United Nations.
Adityanji, like
So
I'm not able to hear you properly. Is it the problem with me or with everyone else?
I also cannot.
We cannot hear him properly. His voice
Voice
is
is
coming
voice is
broken and
broken.
cracked.
There is some.
His voice is coming broken and cracked. There's some audio problems.
okay.
There is some something going on. Some coach software.
Now the screen is visible,
Yeah.
I
but
am not able to control my screen. So
Oh,
if you are
because
able to switch off your own video, maybe the bandwidth may be better then for the audio.
Mr. Kachori, can you relinquish the control back to me?
um, you on the corner of the screen there is a request control. You on that.
Ramanji, what's the
Yeah.
problem?
Nothing. You got it, Adityanji, I guess.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's much better. I suggest you leave the PowerPoint, Dr. Adityan. I think that would perhaps give the bandwidth.
I think I know what was the problem with the PowerPoint, and I'm going to just finish the introduction. So, coming back to our distinguished speaker, he is globally acknowledged strategic and security analyst who has authored over 400 publications. He has held various key appointments in the Army and United Nations. He has been interviewed by various national and international news channels on strategic, military, and United Nations related subjects. He has been awarded twice by President of India, twice by the UN, and has received CEE Excellence Awards for Nation Building by Governor of Haryana. He has been awarded the International Diplomacy and Global Conflict Resolution by IOED twice. And lastly, he has a very distinguished academic profile. He has PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, two MPhil degrees in Defense Management and Public Administration, a master's degree in Defense Studies, PG diploma in Human Resource Management, diplomas in Supply Chain Management, Disaster Management, and Negotiation Skills from IIM, advanced professional program on public administration with senior bureaucrats and dealing with governance at senior level with outstanding grade. So we really are fortunate to have Major General Asthana, who is also Chief Instructor for United Service Institution. He'll be speaking on Russia's Ukraine war, strategic victory or stalemate. Since this war started on February 24, 2022, it has its own vicissitudes. These are the colors of Ukraine, and this slide will tell you, as of July 20th, what is the ground situation in Ukraine, who is controlling what territory, and pretty much this area is under the Russian control. If you look at this particular slide, it also tells you the NATO positions in the Europe, the number of NATO troops and NATO assets. And if you look at this slide, it tells you what have been the Russian losses in this now 5-month-old war. 1,700 tanks, almost 4,000 APCs, 39,000 troops, etc., etc. Now, the veracity of these Russian losses cannot be independently confirmed. I may add here that US State Department stated, quote unquote, we can confirm recent death of two US citizens in the Donbass region of Ukraine. These are not the first American deaths in US-led proxy war against Russia. At least two US fighters were killed earlier and two others were captured by Russian forces. So whether it is Russia's Ukraine war or Russia's NATO war or whatever war, there is something more to it going on. Before I give the floor to Major General Asthana, some housekeeping rules. Please mute yourself to avoid noise interference. Please change your cell phone setting to vibration mode. Please do not try to interrupt our esteemed speaker. Those members of the audience who identify themselves openly will be allowed to ask questions. All the questions have to be sent through chat function. Please be precise and specific in asking questions. We really don't want another lecture in the form of questions. Lastly, this program is going to be recorded and will be available within 24 hours on my YouTube channel. And I think we have usually many more views on our recordings because people find it difficult to attend because of time constraints, the live session. So without further ado, I'm going to invite General Asthana to enlighten us on Russia's Ukraine war, whether it is a strategic victory or it is a stalemate at this point in time. So, General Asthana, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Adityanji. So, respected Dr. Adityanji, friends from the Council of Strategic Affairs, New York, and all the viewers who are watching this show, it's always a great pleasure to speak to this community and friends who are well informed on strategic matters, on international matters, and more so on a topic which is a topic of global concern. The Russia-Ukraine war is a war which everybody wishes should not have started. Many feel that it was an avoidable war, but then the war is on, and therefore the analysis is also on. Whether it is a victory or stalemate, there is still time to see and analyze a little more. But one thing is certain: nobody is going to win this war. The only competition is who will lose less. And therefore, there are many questions. Who is winning? Whose victory are we talking about? What are the dimensions of the warfare which are being exercised? Who is involved? Or rather, the whole world is involved. Now, these are many questions which I'll try to address in some manner or the other. But to start with, let's first analyze as to who all are the parties to the conflict before we realize as to who is winning and who is losing. While Russia can be accused of, and rightly so, of launching a preemptive offensive in Ukraine and violating the territorial integrity of Ukraine, but there was also a case of a provocation, which we will analyze in a little more detail. As of today, the kinetic contact hybrid warfare is going on between Russia and Ukraine, but there is a non-kinetic, non-contact warfare going on between NATO and Russia, which is in economic domain, information domain, diplomatic domain, political domain simultaneously. And therefore, they are also party to the conflict. And needless to say that the whole world is impacted by it. And therefore, people who are not party to the conflict, they also have major stakes in the war. Now, how I intend utilizing it, everybody knows. I think the audience gathering as well as the intellectual level of all the audience is such that I don't think I need to tell you as to why this war happened. But certainly when we analyze in a little more detail, why should it happen in February 2022? We all know that in 1990, when USSR broke away, there were agreements made, and if not the signed agreement, but certainly some understanding was made by Baker that not an inch eastward expansion will be taken. There were 14 countries who signed. Today there are 30 and 2 are waiting in the wing. Maybe it may become 32 very soon, who will be part of NATO. Now, although NATO can say we didn't tell anybody to join, it was a voluntary affair, everybody has joined voluntarily. But then the fact is, once USSR broke, was there a need for a collective security alliance? Question number one. Secondly, once the security alliance was made, was there any threat which was posed which involved an expansion? And three, once the expansion took place, then there were concerns raised by Russians. In fact, not only by President Putin, but his predecessors as well. But perhaps at that point of time, Russia was either not strong enough or the protests made were not strong enough. And perhaps the level of provocation was also not strong enough. So therefore, what exactly happened in February 2021? Now let me take it back, because these are the issues which are not covered in Western media, and therefore I am highlighting it. Firstly, when Zelensky took over, he replaced somebody who was seen to be closer to Moscow. And there was a talk that Ukraine had asked for membership of NATO. Now, the membership of NATO involves that the countries concerned should not be involved in internal or external conflict, which is never the case with Ukraine, and therefore it has never been admitted in NATO. But President Zelensky carried out some kind of, shall I say, consensus, and also in the parliament something was made out that we want to join NATO, and he raised the pitch that they want to join NATO, which did alarm Russia, because so far Russia was insisting that it should not have a direct land border with NATO. Now with Ukraine joining NATO, the possibility was of having a direct land border with NATO. At the same time, two things happened which are not being talked of. Zelensky signed a decree to say that I will recapture Crimea somewhere around 2021. Immediately after that, there was a NATO exercise in Black Sea. There was also a fair amount of support to the Azov battalions. And for our viewers, I must tell you that these Azov battalions were the formation sign of earlier Panzer divisions. And that is why Putin calls them Nazis. And they have also been accused of ill-treating a large number of Soviet-speaking population. So therefore, the choices left to Russia were two. Either you wait for Ukraine, supported by USA and NATO, to attack Crimea, or you launch a preemptive offensive. Knowing Putin, certainly he did what he did. And that rest is a story which we all know. But why February 21? Or why that area? See, Nord Stream 1 was functioning and Europe was increasingly getting dependent on Russia for gas. Nord Stream 2 was getting ready. And therefore, for US, there was a little alarm to feel that if Nord Stream 2 gets through, then perhaps the kind of dependence which Europe will have on Russia, it may perhaps decrease their influence on Europe. And therefore, there was a heightened pitch of the activities which happened in Donbass region at that point of time. Now, all these things put together led to a preemptive offensive. And now let me just go to every country or every stakeholder as to what his aim was, what were the stakes involved, what were his compulsions of each party to the conflict. And I will also cover what was the strategy and what was the operational art exercised. Because a lot of people are not aware of the facts in a manner. The media all over the world has mutilated facts. The NATO, the bulk of the media and social media, the instruments are being controlled by NATO. And therefore, what you visualize and what you see comes more which favors NATO and Ukraine. The other part is not very well known. So I will try and balance it out as to what exactly happened. Now, firstly, everybody talks of that Russia had tremendous amount of force and therefore there was a quick victory in place or what was possible and Russia failed to secure that victory, etc., etc. Now, let me put it this way. When the offensive started, Ukraine had 2.5 lakhs of troops, 2.5 lakh reservists, 1 lakh force they created out of civilians, giving weapons to civilians and using a lot of mercenaries as well. So that makes it about 6 odd lakhs. The number of Russians who entered, they were somewhere around 1 to 1.5 lakhs. But the military assets were very much in favor of Russia. So therefore, as far as and those assets were also attuned for mechanized warfare. So therefore, from the point of view of mechanized warfare, Russia was better placed. But for the fight in built-up area, Ukraine was better placed. Both sides have equal amount of time for preparation because after 2014, both sides knew that the things can go wrong at any point of time. And therefore, both had 8 years of preparation. Both sides have used mercenaries. So there are no holy cows in this game. So let's not perhaps think that perhaps side A is using unfair means. Both sides are using unfair means. Now we come to what was Russia's aim, intention, and what they did and what exactly happened. Now, Russia's initial aim was that somehow to arrest the trend of eastward expansion of NATO. To that extent, initially he gave the plan, whatever which was not agreed to by the West. And of course, that plan was also impractical to be agreed to by by NATO. So therefore, NATO also deduced that perhaps he is going to launch an offensive. And rightly so, that was deduced. Subsequently, his political aim, therefore, was that if by an offensive maneuver, if Zelensky's mind can be targeted and if he gives in by the shock and awe effect of the column which gets into Kiev, then maybe the war can finish early. But that didn't happen. His strategic aim was, and that was right from the word go, that he should be able to liberate Donbas region. He should be able to provide connectivity to Crimea, because Ukraine had stopped the water of Crimea at a number of times and they were creating certain problems. So therefore, his aim was to create a corridor with which he can join Donbas with Crimea, and if the offensive goes well, he could perhaps move subsequently to other areas. In this case, you may like to recall the map which Dr. Adityan ji had shown, because he has already reached up to Crimea. This corridor is already reached up to Crimea, and thereafter his aim is which continues to be that if he can join up with Transnistria, that is a portion of Moldova, where 93% of people have voted that they want to join Russia. And that will also make Ukraine landlocked. Now, this is the strategic aim. Now, what was the military aim? The military aim was that there was very heavy concentration of troops of Ukraine opposite Donbas region. Had he launched and restricted his offensive only to Donbas region, he would have faced tough resistance, which he is facing now as well. So, therefore, what he thought was that if I can threaten a high value objective, then maybe I will be able to turn the defenses. In military, we call turning the defenses, that is taking the enemy from an unfavorable direction. So, he launched an offensive on Kiev. Russia, I repeat, did not have the capability to capture Kiev at any point of time. Whatever media was saying that they tried and they failed, etc., is all nonsense. Because to capture a built-up area like Kiev and clear every street, you require 6 times the troops of what Ukraine is holding. And that many troops Russia never had in Ukraine. So, from military perspective, he never had the capability to capture Kiev. Now, let's come to the Ukrainian side. Ukraine's, what they were trying was, they knew that they have the superiority of numbers as far as manpower is concerned. They also had the sufficient drones and surveillance devices, because they are being helped by USA to a great extent in surveillance as well as intelligence, as well as NATO. But they did not have the equipment matching Russia. So while Russia wanted to fight the warfare, that was a maneuver warfare, Ukrainians were more attuned that they should fight attrition warfare. Now, how do you fight attrition warfare? It's a plain country. So therefore, their strategy was that, okay, to fight the attrition warfare, what we must do is convert all the townships into fortresses, all the buildings into bunkers. Fix up your weapons into these areas, so-called residential areas, and fire from there. And once you fire from there, the Russians' column, they get hemmed in. Russians were not prepared for top attack modalities, which was being executed by drones and by the anti-tank missiles, Javelin missiles and things like that, which were given by the West to Ukraine. And when Russia strikes the residential areas, you also get the information warfare advantage because you can flag it all over the world that they are killing our civilians. Much is being made out about the democracy part of it. Ukraine is a democracy and we want to protect democracy, etc., etc. For the viewers, let me tell you, on day one, Ukraine is under martial law. Zelensky, from the beginning, is a martial law dictator as of today. Now, that is the reality. All able-bodied Ukrainians do not have a choice whether to fight or not fight. So while the Western media, for whatever interest they have, would have painted him as a hero, but then the fact is that everybody may not be fighting as per choice. Now let's talk of the cause or the aim of Ukraine. Now Ukraine was saying, I want to join NATO. Now in one of the discussions where I had the representatives of Ukraine, Russia, NATO and everybody, I happened to be chairing the session. So I asked the Ukrainian representative, please tell me, considering your situation, I don't think, were you confident that you will get an entry to NATO? He said, sir, there was doubt. I said, then why were you fighting? What was your aim of fighting and what was your cause of fighting? And why were you actually, shall I say, raising the pitch of NATO? So he says, we had a consensus, we had a parliament, etc., etc. So I asked the NATO fellow that if they have a parliament and if they have a vote and if they have the popularity that they should join NATO, does that qualify them to become part of NATO? He said no, because this precondition is not being met. So therefore, in other words, then I asked him, if that is so, then did NATO at any point of time give you an assurance that we will include you? He says, no, it was only under consideration. No such assurance was given. Then again I asked that if that be so, then why are you, does it mean that, but then they were also saying that it is our sovereign choice to join NATO. I said, your sovereign choice to join NATO, does it mean that the other side, the organization for which you are trying to make the sovereign choice and raise the pitch that my sovereignty is under danger, the other side is not even interested in giving you the membership? So therefore, the sum and total of the entire discussion was that this war started because Zelensky was pleasing the population, was also being instigated by some other people, and just to fulfill that I should have a choice to join NATO, I think having 9.6 refugees, I don't think it is worth it. Taking the country back and having so many casualties, I don't think it is worth it. So therefore, whether he is a hero or he is otherwise, that is for the entire world to decide. People have their own opinions and people will continue to have their own opinions. But the fact is that this is how even Pope had to say and tell, I think, our NATO friends that why do you have to go and bark on the, shall I say, on the doors of Putin? So that was one part of it. Now let me talk of Russia to some extent. Has Russia achieved its aim? The answer is no, certainly not. Russia has gone through unacceptable amount of casualties. If Russia wanted that there should be no eastward expansion, and if Finland and Sweden join, in Finland is joining NATO, that means there is a direct land border with Russia of NATO of more than 1,000 kilometers. So have they actually gained the victory? Answer is no. Yes, the map which Dr. Adityanji shows, they have certainly gained tremendous amount of territory. And let me tell you that NATO can do nothing about it for one simple reason. Because the Russia could not make a headway in Kiev or Kharkiv, because in built-up area you require 6:1 ratio, and the built-up area favors the defender. Now Russia is the defender of all the territory which it has occupied, and if Ukraine has to dislodge Russia from there, they require that amount of ratio. And Russia has done one master stroke, that in the beginning itself they said that they gave a nuclear reference, and with that nuclear reference the entire NATO is left out of battle. They have said that, okay, we have a policy of escalate to de-escalate, and if our existence is threatened, we will not mind using the nuclear weapon in directly or indirectly in various terms, because that is their policy. So have one reference to that policy means that NATO knows that nuclear war cannot be fought. Russia has the largest amount of nuclear weapons. A nuclear war will be a mutually assured destruction of the entire world. And therefore, what best NATO can do is to keep supporting the heavy equipment and keep supporting the amount of the arsenal which they can give, and keep instigating Ukraine to fight till the last Ukrainian is alive. It's as simple as that. So this is the situation where this is the dilemma which Putin has posed to NATO. And now he's taking his own time to gain his objectives. Initially, he bought a lot of casualties. Now he has changed his strategy. Now he will pulverize the target. And after pulverizing the target, then only he will move ahead and make slow gains. And he has no time constraint now. So that is how the things are going on. Now let me talk of what he has achieved. Now you see the territory. It is not that he has achieved about 25% of more than 20% of the territory of Ukraine beyond Crimea after he has captured Crimea. But it is an important territory in terms of the industrial hub, in terms of the energy centers, in terms of all its ports. Most of its ports are there. Now, yesterday we had an agreement on the grains to be moved out. Now, this agreement, let me tell you that all the agreements are conditional, because notwithstanding what the agreement says, the fact is that Russia is blaming Ukraine that you have mined the ports. The ports stand mined. It needs to be seen who is going to give the transport fleet to ferry those grains. And Russia has also given another, there is a caveat also, that every single ship, when it comes back, will be inspected by Russians, by UN, by Turkey, and by Ukrainians, a joint group of them, so that the weapons are not transported in, which was a concern of Russia. And the former president of Russia also said, when the whole noise was being made that Ukraine's grains are being stopped and the whole world is suffering and starving, etc., etc., he says, don't make a fool of us. It's not only Ukraine's grains which are being stopped, it is Russians' grains also which are being stopped, because our ships are also not being allowed to ferry the grains. So you think we are fools that we will allow Ukraine's grains to go and Russians' grains not to go? So therefore, in this agreement, it may come out in open or may not, but the fact is that the sanctions are being to some extent diluted, and Russians' grains will also move if Ukrainians' grains move. And if the Russians' grains don't move, then you can take it for whatever reasons, the Ukrainian grains will also not move. That is perhaps going to be the situation. Now let me also talk about what is going to happen subsequently as far as Russia is concerned. Certainly they have made up their mind that they are going to continue till the time they landlock Ukraine, and there are not very many choices left with the other side. Let me also, from the Ukrainian point of view, there is no doubt that the entire NATO is supporting them. They feel that Putin must lose, because if he doesn't lose, then he will get emboldened and other security may get threatened. So that's the concern which they have. But then the question is that are they in a position to influence? The media is saying yesterday, even because there is a clause in the information warfare also, that there must be some element of truth for your information warfare to be effective and be believed by the rest of the world. Now it is not being believed by the rest of the world as far as the NATO information warfare is concerned. Now with the kind of territory which has been captured by Russia, if you say Zelensky is winning or Ukraine is winning, nobody is going to believe it. And therefore, perhaps everything will have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Everybody is flashing these many were the Russians' casualties. Nobody has confirmed it. Nobody will be able to confirm it. The converse is also true. Does it mean that Ukraine had no casualty? Till now, I don't find any Western media trying to flash what casualties Ukrainian had. So it is not that. Both sides are having casualties. Both sides have a tough time. Both sides have a problem. Even the trainers of United States have also been captured. The trainers of UK has been captured. Now, when we talk of sanctions, everybody is saying initially that Russia is going to, walk down and it will have crippling sanctions. Now the situation is moving the other way around. You find Russia blocked Nord Stream 1 to say that our turbines are not functional. Turbines were being repaired in Canada. Canada made an exception that we will repair your turbines and send it to you, because the entire European Union is crying. So the turbines have gone back, and now he has started that gas flow again. The amount of gas which has been purchased has funded the Russian war. I had written in my initial articles, I have written at least about 10 odd articles on this. So in my first article, that this is going to be a test bed for big power contestation. In that I had written that, you like it or not, in the long run, there is going to be an alternate system of alternate financial system will come up. Now, it may not come up in 5 years. It may not come up in 10 years. It will still be a dollarized economy for about 5 to 10 years. But you can see the signs of that appearing. There are more and more countries. Similarly, now very many countries are not buying the NATO's narrative. President Biden went to Middle East. We all know about it. He tried to convince Saudi Arabia that you increase the oil production. He said, no, nothing doing. We will go as per what OPEC says. Then he said, okay, there is a problem with what you guys did with that journalist. So he also counted that in United States you have the Black Lives Matters and all this, what you did in Iraq, etc., etc. So in other words, they were in no mood to lecture. The USA said we'll make Putin pariah. Now Putin is attending G20. He went to Iran and he got a $40 billion deal signed. He also got a strategic partnership. He also got an endorsement that your offensive was right by the Ayatollah Khomeini. So the point I'm trying to say is that this is an interdependent world. In this interdependent world, it is not easy for the second largest to isolate the second largest producer of energy. So it's not all that easy to, and the sanctions are having a biting effect even in Europe. Today, Europe is divided. EU decided for Europe that we will ration gas. Today, the state is 12 countries have said, no, we will not follow this. So therefore, every country has its own reasons to say so. So this is the way the things are moving. Now let's talk of Ukraine. The amount of money which United States has pumped in Ukraine works out to about $54 billion. This is double the money which they have spent in 20 years of war in Afghanistan. So therefore, perhaps if not today, tomorrow, the taxpayer of USA will also question the wisdom of United States as to what you all are doing, because at the end of the day, there will be an impact on the economy of United States also. Initially, when I say as to why this happened in February 2021, because United States wanted the Nord Stream 2 not to go through, and they, if preferably, to block Nord Stream 1 also, and they were successful to some extent. The second issue was the arms lobby. After they went back from Afghanistan, there was hardly any conflict, and therefore instigating a conflict may perhaps fill the pockets of a number of arms dealers. But then the problem there is that yes, you may gain a market and a consistent market if you prolong the war. And when people say that Ukraine is a sovereign country, I don't think so, because when he will stop the war, it depends not only on Zelensky, it depends on others. Because as of now, Zelensky also keeps changing his stance, because many times he says, no, I have no choice, I will have to talk. And sometimes, and all of a sudden, then there is a call. And after that, Zelensky has this thing, no, I am winning, and I will start and I will continue to fight, etc., etc. So therefore, the problem which is coming up is that the amount which is being spent in Ukraine can also put the economy of rest of the world into recession. The costs of everything has gone up, whether it is food items or energy. The energy market, OPEC is in no mood to compromise. OPEC is also saying, when USA tried to tell OPEC that please isolate Russia, they said no, nothing doing. OPEC, Russia is a partner in OPEC, and it will continue to remain so. So therefore, at the end of the day, has United States actually benefited? To my mind, the influence seems to be decreasing, because if Saudi Arabia is not listening to you, if Middle East, you lost out from Afghanistan, you have no footprints, strategic footprints in Afghanistan, you have lost out in Middle East, then the biggest disadvantage which USA is facing is, and which was also pointed out by old strategists of United States, even Kissinger and all, everybody had said that never confront two Asian powers together. This war has joined Russia and China together and brought them closer as never before. And let me tell you, with Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, Syria, all this put together, it is not easy for United States to handle it. So this was the worst case scenario in strategic terms for USA, but they have landed up into this. And why did they land up? The reason is also very simple. When USSR broke, actually the Cold War 1.0 should have ended. It did not end. Certain strategists or certain politicians of USA thought that they should continue Cold War 1.0 because they will have an influence on Europe. Then started the Cold War 2.0 because Russia started China started challenging USA. So there was a so-called Cold War 2.0. You had the trade war, you had the shall I say, posturing in South China Sea, you had a whole lot of military exercises, then you had the freedom of navigation exercises, then Quad came up, and all these kinds of strategic maneuvers took place. So that was Cold War 2.0. But one thing President Joe Biden realized, that it is beyond me to take on China economically. And it is beyond USA even today to sanction China, because your economies are so much entangled that there is a very serious problem. And this problem was realized during COVID, because forget about the pandemic. When the COVID broke out, that time even the toilet rolls were coming from China, and there was a hygiene problem because the toilet rolls did not fetch up. So much was the dependency. Now the dependency has been realized, and alternate supply chain, technological chain, the shall I say 5G chain, etc., etc., is trying to be. Everybody is trying to establish that. There is no doubt about it. We all have realized, and that is where our interest, Indian interest, and US interests are coinciding, and therefore certainly we need to take care of that and ensure that China doesn't have an unfair advantage. There's no doubt about it. But the fact is that still the economies are so intermingled that what you could do to Russia, you can't do to China. Secondly, you found shall I say, somebody, a willing taker of your war, that you could win without fighting. You thought so, that is NATO thought so, that we could win without fighting through Zelensky. Make Zelensky fight, let him take the heavy load, and we will keep supporting him financially or with the material. And that was a very good scenario. But you will not find another Zelensky in Asia and another Ukraine in Asia. So that's the problem. And therefore, this joining up of the two major anniversaries is going to cost US very heavily in the long run. Because it is not only this. You have BRICS, you have many more now methodologies coming up for bilateral trades in the local currencies. Slowly and slowly all will happen. Slowly and slowly you will find that you have created a scenario that perhaps China will benefit. Perhaps yuan will have a better say. Although I still say that even for de-dollarized economy, there will be no de-dollarized economy, but there will be two sets of economies. And it will remain a dollarized world for at least 5 to 10 years, not less than 10 years. But what after 10 years? It may today the biggest strength of United States was that United States controls the financial system of the world. That is the biggest strength. The second biggest strength of United States is, which no other country has, is its geography and its self-sufficiency in oil and in food. Because China doesn't have self-sufficiency in oil and food. So that is why there is a problem. And Russia doesn't have an economic muscle. Now what you have done is that by this war, you have Russia, which is a very strong military power, has joined up with another economic power. Russia has a self-sufficiency in oil and Russia has a self-sufficiency in food. And the other guy does not have these two, but has got the economic muscles. And you have combined these two. So now their strengths have got combined. And the biggest strength which USA was carrying is now a problem. And Europe, mind you, it is divided and will remain so. Because, like it or not, the energy which is going to go from USA and all the alternatives of energy for Europe are costlier alternatives than the alternative from Russia. So therefore, there is a cost to pay, and that cost may not be so convenient for all the European Union countries to be convincing. So that's another reason. So therefore, this shift of so what President Joe Biden did was he shifted back from Cold War 2.0. He thought Cold War 2.0 is too difficult for me to fight. So let me make gains in Cold War 1.0, and I have a willing partner, Zelensky, and he's going to do it on my behalf. So where is the problem? So let me do it and make the best of, and all the arms lobby will also be happy. Now, this is what I'm speaking today is what the rest of the world is thinking, because the media houses are being controlled by the West, by NATO. So what people in United States are listening is what is the doctored narrative, but the others don't feel it so. And therefore comes another question which is coming up of the what is the Indian stance? I think I've got 6 more minutes before I finish, before I start off with the question answer session. Now, Indian stance, let me put it in no uncertain terms. As far as we are concerned, it's absolutely an impartial stance. India is absolutely impartial. We do not, shall I say, support any country invading any other country. We do not support anybody violating anybody's territorial integrity. We also support that the UN obligations must be upheld by everybody. We also support that international order must remain. But at the same time, what Russia has done now has been done by United States in Iraq. It has also been done in United States in Afghanistan, by United States in Afghanistan. And let me also say that as far as India is concerned, the human right of Ukraine is no different than the human right of the ladies of Afghanistan. And we can see the plight of ladies of Afghanistan also. So anybody trying to lecture us as to which side, how the India should behave is slightly different. Now, there is no doubt when we are strategic partners, and this is the most important partnership of this century, as United States put it and as we put it, and it is both ways. There is no doubt that United States is the most important partner for us and vice versa. And the reason is also very simple. We have unsettled border with China. They can't be our friends. It's as simple as that. And neither US alone nor India alone can tackle China. We both need to get together to tackle China. So therefore, there is a compulsion. And given the situation which has been created by this war of Russia and China being together, there is a need that all other powers have to get together to take on the China's challenge. But when it comes to India's sovereignty and India's sovereign decisions, India will make its own sovereign decisions. When it comes to energy, now let me go back slightly. We were strategic partners of United States. United States told us don't buy oil from Iran. We were getting cheaper oil from Iran in rupee terms. We stopped buying oil, but then the problem is, obviously, in other words, we were told that, okay, you buy now costlier oil, that is shale oil, from USA instead of Iran. And we were doing it. But now, just because somebody decided to switch over from Cold War 2.0 to Cold War 2.1, Cold War 2.0 to Cold War 1.0, this does not mean that we will sacrifice our energy security. So if we get an oil, and there is no reason why the Indian public should pay for something which has been created and for somebody who has provoked something somewhere else. So therefore, India will take a strategic choice, and we will condemn the Russian action in Ukraine as much as we will condemn the US action in Iraq. So therefore, that is the principled stance of India. And also when it talk of sovereignty, now let me just put it this way. There is a sovereignty loss in South China Sea. People are quiet. There is incremental encroachment by China in Asia. People are, the West is quiet, and West remained quiet. All of a sudden, when incremental encroachment took place in Ukraine, everybody is saying, crying foul. Now, I think our foreign minister very amply clarified that please come out of this syndrome that your problems are global problems and global problems are not your problems. So I think that sums up that there is life and there is the world beyond the perception and the prism of a particular community, and perhaps the whole world, as the world becomes independent, may not buy or may not go by the diktat of a particular country or a particular group of countries.
Thank you, General Asthana. Can you please
my last point, sanctions. Now, sanctions are not sustainable. We all know it. I think there is an growing awareness that it is not working. It never worked for North Korea. It never worked for Iran. It will not work for Russia also. It is certainly, it has hit the economy of Russia. At the end of this war, Russia will have economic problems. There is no doubt. It is losing out on economy. No doubt about it. the world will also have economic problems, no doubt about it, including USA. There will be economic problems. Europe will never be as peaceful as it was, for one simple reason, because if you have created so many jihadis and so many mercenaries, there is nothing like unemployed jihadis. They will get back to Europe, and Europe will have their share of insurgency in times to come. And secondly, the Ukraine will never be as peaceful as it was, and the geography of Ukraine will never be as what it was. So at the end of the day, if somebody had to ask Ukraine as to what exactly have you achieved, where is your sovereignty, where is your territorial integrity, will you ever be able to achieve it? The answer, I think they will find it very difficult to answer as to why they should have 9.6 million refugees and why they should have so many people killed, and why the rest of the world and USA may think that, okay, we will get good arms market, we will also get a lot of contracts to rebuild Ukraine, and we will make the entire world and Europe pay, and we will get all the contracts, and we will grow, and if we invest 46 billions now, perhaps our arm industry will reproduce that. I don't think that will work so easily as everyone thinks to be. So I go back to my first line before I end, that there will be no winners in this war. It's the only competition is who is lesser loser. As of now, it appears that perhaps China is the biggest gainer and Russia seems to be a lesser loser. And Europe will have to perhaps repent as to why did they follow a particular line when they had a choice to perhaps exercise their sovereign rights. So these are my views. This is a sensitive subject. There are many views on this, and everybody is entitled to his views. I respect everybody's views, and I'm sure that everybody respects everybody's views. But now I think it's over to Dr. Adityan ji. I am ready to answer any kind of questions which have been posed to me. This is the initial remarks which I wanted to make. Over to you.
For a very detailed, strategic, as well as military analysis of this ongoing war. We are a very small group today, but we are a very well-informed group. And most of the questions and comments in the chat function have come from very important and distinguished member of the audience, Ambassador Pradeep Kapoor. So instead of reading his questions, since we are a small group, I would just invite Ambassador Kapoor for some comments and maybe questions. Ambassador Kapoor, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adityanji. First of all, I wish to acknowledge the profound knowledge and wisdom of General Asthana in delivering this very brilliant, keynote or address. Very comprehensive, very comprehensive, very useful, and very insightful. Thank you, General Asthana. Always a pleasure to see you, and appreciate the deep and profound insights you have brought to this topic. And also to Dr. Adityanji for the outstanding work that you keep on doing with the CSA and spreading, this strategic understanding far and wide. Now, what I want to say is that, as I have been saying earlier, it is very tragic that, basically I see it as a tale of two Vladimirs, Vladimir P and Vladimir Z. And one who is a comedian who's turning his country into a very great tragedy. But not only that, turning his own country into a very great tragedy, but that tragedy is now expanding very significantly to the world stage. The amount of disruption that it is causing the global economies, to the global food grain chains, to the global supply chains. So many countries are at the risk of going completely down under. Their economies are in a very precarious state. The recession is looming. Inflation has gone up to double digits and more. And even when I see it here in the US, I see the gas prices on the billboards touching, $5 in some states and almost double that in California and other places, $8, $9. When I go to do my grocery shopping, bills have increased very, very significantly. So in everything that you do in life now, the costs have gone up even at a very personal level. How long can the common citizen afford it? And if the situation is so dire in the United States, imagine the situation in the poorer countries, of which I read a lot, how people are finding it difficult to afford their daily bread these days because of the costs having risen so much. Now, so it brings me back to thinking as to what was the need for this war, to have started in the first place itself. I mean, couldn't there have been a little more sense in the whole situation? A sense of balance, a sense of understanding, a sense of communication. And India's position has to be appreciated against this background. In a sense, from day one, saying that Chapter 5 of the United Nations mentions diplomatic negotiations are primary, are most important. And India has been saying that the solution to the problem before it arose and even after it arose was diplomacy, diplomacy, and more diplomacy. And that unfortunately is not happening. Chapter 6 has been resorted to use of sanctions, use of force, etc., which are totally uncalled for because it is hurting the person who's imposing the entities which are imposing the sanctions as much, if not more, as General Asthana so brilliantly explained. And the whole world is reeling under this impact of sanctions. The changes which will happen are going to be very profound at the end of this war. Just like at the end of World War II, the League of Nations was trashed, the United Nations was created, the World Bank was created as the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, International Monetary Fund, these Bretton Woods institutions were created. So very significant impacts will happen. And I'm going to just now pose my questions to General Asthana, which have been put on the chat function also. What are the possibilities of popular resentment, protests, or uprising by the Ukrainian people against the current Ukrainian government and overthrowing the Ukrainian government? Because to me, it seems absolutely senseless, as I said earlier. They could have said officially in a statement of parliament that they are not going to join NATO and there would have been no war. That is what Vladimir P was demanding. And it would have been a very reasonable assumption to expect that they would have agreed to that. But they didn't. And the war has started. So that is the first question. Hungarian PM Orban has recently stated that the EU strategy on Ukraine and the Western strategy on Ukraine has failed. And he has said very categorically that there is divergences. Like you have highlighted in your talk also, so much difference of opinion amongst the European countries and amongst the Western countries, that he says that new EU strategies are now required for Ukraine. So what are your views on that? Then the other aspect is, I've also discussed already, so I don't want to repeat it, but the question which I posed, which you discussed, I posed a question, was about the impact on the China-Taiwan scenario. And basically I've mentioned about it very clearly. But how will it impact, after the World War II, for example, there was so much of depression after the recession and inflation that the people in the US 1929, if you read the Grapes of Wrath book, for example, or any of the other literature of that time, people were suffering very, very profoundly in US and in all the countries of the West also. Now, what is the impact going to be economically and food grain supplies wise. Thank you very much. It's a lot I've asked, I know, but since you have been so ably addressing all these questions, the other aspect is which I have not mentioned in the questions here is that there is now talk about Ukraine demanding warplanes from US. US is hesitating so far, just like it initially hesitated for those long-range artillery, artillery weapons. So, could they change their decision on that? How will that also impact this further? Thank you, General Hassan. Over to you.
Okay, thank you for your questions. In fact, it's always a pleasure to interact with Ambassador Kapoor. Firstly, I'll answer your last question first. Impact of war planes and long-range RT and things like that. See, we saw the war. Russia had no dearth of long-range RT and no dearth of war planes when they attacked Kiev or when they were launching an offensive towards Kiev. But against the built-up area, nothing very much materialized. The converse is also true. Irrespective of how much, shall I say, long-range RT as well as the warplanes USA gives to Ukraine. Basically, Ukraine is, they are trying that Ukraine should keep fighting. Because if the intention is that if, let's say, hypothetically, if the war freezes at this stage, USA will have no place to hide and NATO will have no place to hide as to what have they actually achieved out of it. So therefore, they are thinking that perhaps they are still giving an impression to Zelensky that you are winning. Don't worry, you keep fighting. But at the same time, long-range RT, President Biden had mentioned a word when he was talking of long-range RT, that please do not engage Russian targets. Because there is a sense that if you escalate the war and climb the next ladder of escalation dynamics, things can be different. Similarly, from the Russians' point of view, now as far as these warplanes are concerned, there are certain very major problems. Obviously, Ukrainians don't know how to fly the Western planes. So what they are going to do is that they are going to give the planes to Poland and tell Poland to give their planes to Ukraine, perhaps. Because that is something which Ukrainians can fly. Now, if that be so, Poland was not very keen to do so. And Poland has also put their foot down and told the Secretary Blinken that why are you putting us on the fire line? Because at the end of the day, you are still far away. The things, if the brunt falls, it is going to fall on us. So therefore, making announcements and finally giving the warplanes, there is a little, perhaps we will have to wait and see. I would put it this way. But I do not think that the war equations are going to change very much, even if they have some more arsenal, because Russia was no short of arsenal. The fact was that in built-up area, that arsenal did not work. And it is not going to work the other way around also, because now that Russians have occupied built-up areas, so how is, there is no magic wall with this arsenal that it is going to work. Yes, there will be destruction. They don't mind that destruction. And Russians are reasonably hardy to face that destruction. That's one part. Now, the second question is of the uprising in Ukraine. Now, as far as Ukraine is concerned, let's put it this way. As I mentioned, the heroics are being advertised all over. Sometimes you find earlier in the beginning of the war, there were a whole lot of photo sessions. Some celebrity is picking up weapon and fighting. Then some mother is picking up and weapon and fighting. Now they have started diminishing and they have started vanishing to some extent. Then the question was, everybody was saying all guys are fighting and they have done this thing, photo shoots and all that. But the fact is that first day itself, Zelensky knew that this is an unpleasant decision. And that's why he put a martial law. If it was so popular decision, then he didn't need martial law. But Ukraine is under martial law. So it's no more a democracy as of today. And certainly the democratic world is not fighting for democratic Ukraine. It is fighting for Ukraine, which is under martial law. of Zelensky. Now, martial law dictators have a lease life. And therefore, what happens is, how his popularity will remain or not, the people will view it from the gains which it makes. If it makes zero gains and people start getting killed, obviously the people will have a problem. Because after all, so many refugees, 10 million refugees is not a joke. 9.6 million refugees is not a joke. So there will be public resentment in times to come. As of now, it doesn't seem to be so, because he has kept everything in control in Ukraine because of martial law. So that's what I visualize. Now, as far as EU strategy is concerned, see, EU will start feeling the pain as the winters get closer, because there is no alternative, shall I say, cost-effective alternative to Russian gas. There are alternatives, but they are not cost-effective. So therefore, Europe has an issue. In addition to that, those 10 million refugees are physically in Europe. And Europe has to take their burden as too. And how long they are going to take that burden, there is also a capacity of Europe.
Yeah.
So, in fact, there were certain issues that they were pushing out Afghan refugees, saying that no, you are no longer required, and they were putting in Ukrainian refugees in some camps. And there was disgruntlement in that, which is also not covered by media, and it has also been put under the carpet. Secondly, which I mentioned, which is a very important factor, we have seen in our neighborhood, the moment you sponsor mercenaries, those mercenaries will finally fall back. Now, there are fighters who have gone from Europe to fight for Ukraine. Now, Europe can very well say, no, they have gone voluntarily. But once they are used to those guns, they will come back. And once they come back with those guns, there will be a problem. So, it has never been a transition of that kind. And secondly, now that you have joined border with Russia, you will have to fear Russia throughout. So Europe will never be as peaceful as it was. They have changed, unfortunately, for whatever they have done. I don't think that time, I think the rest of the world and even India, to that extent, I think India has come out quite clearly on that, to say that stop this war. Nobody is going to be a winner. Please stop it. But I think that time they all were obsessed. Now, let me put it this way. There is also a dichotomy between Eastern Europe and Western Europe. The Eastern Europe feels that Russia is a threat. The Western Europe doesn't feel. Spain and France are on a different grid. They don't think. Macron is still thinking that there will be some good days. This war will end and we will have goody relations with Russia. He is still thinking on those lines. And so are some of the Western European countries. UK was, it had to follow UK and USA were most closely involved. And the share of their guys in the Azov battalions was maximum. So they had a problem when Mariupol siege was taking place. And Russians are also quite smart. They are going to unveil the number of guys of UK and US which are in their captivity. So there is a problem. Now, the biggest problem which we are facing, or which the question which you have asked is China. Now, China has got a lot of advantages out of this. One is they have learned so many lessons at the cost of somebody else. Secondly, it has made Russia a dependent country on China, which was not the case, because Russia was a proud country and not dependent. Today, Putin, like it or not, has a tremendous amount of dependency on China. The third issue is that US as well as EU's attention has got divided. US is certainly divided. Now they can't leave Russia halfway, and they cannot put full weight against China also. Now, under these circumstances, although China will not do any, I would say, irresponsible act in Taiwan at this point of time, for one simple reason, not because of USA. Let me put it in no uncertain terms. Chinese are quite clear. I don't think USA has, they fear USA's intervention in Taiwan. that is not the reason. But there are internal reasons for they not to take any initiative in Taiwan. Because if you do the strategic calculation, the cost benefit wise, it does not figure out for them. They are all Han Chinese. They are all solid economy. They are the biggest chip makers in the world. And the entire money as it is invested in China. Their bulk of the trade is with China. Why should China spoil everything? The only thing why they are flying over Taiwan every second day is that they want to keep Tsai Ing-wen under control, that she should not declare independence, and they are hoping that she loses the next election and KMT comes to power, and then they will have no problems, because Xi Jinping has been saying that I will invade Taiwan right from 2013. 9 years have passed. If he has not done so till now, I don't think he is going to do so now. And now that his election is also due, so-called election, I mean doctored election, but November they have the CPC meeting. So that's one part of it. The second issue is that China also now knows that what international opinion can do. They also know the tenets of the information warfare and economic warfare, and it is preparing accordingly. It is also striking deals to countries to deal with yuan. It is also striking deals in a manner that it can create some kind of alternate financial system. Now they will continue this effort, and that is where perhaps in the long run USA needs to do some thinking about it. Then they also know that yes, the decoupling is taking place as far as supply chain is concerned. There will be many factories, but they also know that for next year till next 10 years, China will still be the largest factory out of many factories which may emerge. So if the Chinese can perhaps get over this, the kind of debts which they have now, and if they can sort out their economy, perhaps that will affect. The last part is the economic part, as far as your question is concerned. Yes, the whole world will have the economic recession, and whole world will feel the pinch of this economic recession, because there is a disruption in food supply chain, in energy supply chain, in technological supply chain, and there is a disruption in so many things, and there is a diversion also. Now everybody is looking for capacity building, right from Japan to South Korea to India to you name a country. Everybody, and every country in Europe, everybody wants to build up his defense capability. So obviously some economic resources will get diverted, and if they get diverted that side, obviously the per capita availability of funds to the human beings will reduce. So therefore there is going to be a problem, and this is that is where I say that this was an avoidable war, and as you also rightly put it, with perhaps some security assurances, this war could have been avoided, but unfortunately it was not to happen in that manner.
Thank you
So
very much
I
indeed.
can take on the next set of questions. I hope, sir, I have answered you, Ambassador.
Absolutely. Very, very well. Thank you so much. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you
Always.
very much indeed, General Asthana, for a very detailed and exquisite analysis in military terms and international relationship terms on this particular topic. And I'm highly thankful to Ambassador Kapoor for asking very incisive questions, because it brought forth other dimensions to this whole problem. There are no other questions from the audience. I've asked several times and nobody is putting questions. So I'll just give a few comments and then we will close this discussion because we are running out of time. So the topic was Russia-Ukraine war, strategic victory or stalemate. And I alluded in my introduction, it is actually not Russia-Ukraine war, it is Russia-NATO. That is what it is de facto. It is Russia-NATO war. Is it a strategic victory for any of the parties, or it is a stalemate? It is stalemate in a certain sense. It is partial victory for Russia, but it is turning out to be strategic victory for China, which is not a party to this direct hot war. But in the strategic terms, the ultimate victor is going to be China, as General Asthana has said. What this NATO war has done is to make Russia the junior partner of an emerging hegemon, which is China. And that is the most important outcome of this conflict. India stands, CSA tries to educate the Indian diaspora, especially Indian Americans. There's been a little bit of, activity. There are Indian American politicians who are trying to organize Indian Americans to support the US stance and try to criticize the Indian government. But Indian government has done a remarkable job in guarding India's interest. And to highlight that aspect of the problem, this is essentially a European tribal war. India has no skin in the game. And India should remain neutral. India should not condone Putin, but India also should not condone what NATO has been doing before the hot war erupted on February 24, 2022. Mind you, there was a proxy inspired against a democratic government in Ukraine, and a famous US diplomat, Victoria Nuland, in a recorded phone call with Jeffrey Bernard, was planning the Maidan revolution that led to ouster of Viktor Yanukovych. Ousting of a democratically elected president in Ukraine left the seeds of partition, bifurcation of Ukraine that you are seeing in slow motion. So action, reaction there, and that is what is happening. And my last word is that Volodymyr Zelensky has proved himself to be a useful leader for NATO. He has managed to get his country destroyed, decimated, infrastructure gone. He's pretty much affected his land in an international geopolitical strife that probably will have one winner that is not European, and that is emergence of China as a really major power, because that's the only party that is giving. So with those comments, I'm going to end this discussion. I'm very thankful to General Asthana. I'm also highly thankful to Ambassador Kapoor for asking some incisive questions. And I'm thankful to Team CSA, especially with Udhaman Pachari. He has always been there in these programs, managing the technical aspects. We did have some technical problems today, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm thankful to all of you, teams, as well as Team CSA, for this very educational session. So things are not black and white, there are shades of gray. The saga is unending, and we are witnessing what I call Afghanistanization of Ukraine, which has its own consequences. So thank you very much indeed. We have to close this session. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.